Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor. Our topic today is democracy disabled in Myanmar and the implications for the region. And to speak on this, we have Lieutenant General Konsam Himalay Singh, retired from Imphal, Pradip Phanjoubam, editor of Imphal Free Press daily, also from Imphal, and Dr Udai Bhanu Singh, a scholar from the Institute for Defence Studies and Analyses. Gentlemen, I'll just put across a few observations, after which we'll take this on. I cannot but help put across that the takeover by the military junta in Myanmar seems to come with a timing of a very crucial stage of the Sino-Indian East Ladakh border tension, on which recently there's been just the first stage of disengagement. That disengagement does not at all mean, end of tension. We should have no doubt about the connection between China and Myanmar. Mr. Zhou Enlai visited Burma, as it was known then, from 1954 to 65, 9 times. There is about an $8 billion worth of investment that China has made in Myanmar. It is also reported that in August 2010, 2 PLA Navy ships were berthed in Thilawar. China has bought a lot of property in Myanmar. It owns about 90% of high-rise buildings in Mandalay. And China has a signals facility north of Coco Islands, which is quite close to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The Myanmar markets are flooded with Chinese goods, and Myanmar's foreign policy may well be being levered from Beijing. Gentlemen, with these few observations, I request you all to focus on whatever is happening there. We'll start with the General Himalay.
Yes. Thank you, Col Anil Bhat, sir, for the invitation to join this program. Very shortly, what I would like to say is that your observations are very, very right. But the overall relationship between China and Myanmar, in terms of economic ties, in terms of other interests that they have, particularly the BRI of Chinese BRI and close to 60 billion US dollars, which is much more than CPEC.
Yeah, that is BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah. So, in fact, the planned investment is far more than the CPEC of Pakistan that we are talking about. Having said that, I have been part of military delegations to Myanmar Army when they were in power. And also, I'm regularly in touch with certain scholars and various civil society groups, even now, through mail and other exchange, and in one or two international seminars. So therefore, my reading is that Myanmar army in particular is not very, they are not inclined towards a closer relationship with China. They want to be friendly with India due to religious factors, and also India's moderate kind of a view, and also growing relationship between India and Myanmar. So my overall view is that Chinese military is not, very fond of Myanmar military is not very fond of the Chinese establishment. That is number one. Number two is that as far as we are concerned, as a country, I think we need to think very carefully about how the situation is going to pan out. Other issue is about the national interest. In my mind, the democratic values that need to be, propagated in Myanmar does not outweigh the national interest of India as far as the Act East policy is concerned. So therefore, I would recommend that we wait and see, and also do not take a position prematurely, so that our national interest is, not compromised. Our national interests of it in terms of security concerns, in terms of Act East policy, in terms of neighborhood first, that kind of a policy that we have. Having said that, I'm not saying that we must support the military junta or whatever it is, but I think we should watch very carefully and not take a side before weighing all the options. That's what I'll.
Yeah. Thank you, General Himalay. I think we also need to, you see, it's the Aung San Suu Kyi's government had functioned for barely a decade. So the military junta bounced back into power in just about a decade. And their supposed reason is electoral fraud, because Ms. Suu Kyi won with a landslide. She had a landslide victory. Now, I don't, and another alarming outfall of this is that since a few days ago, over 500 distressed people from Myanmar have crossed over into Mizoram. The Mizoram government has accommodated them, and the Mizoram chief minister has had a word with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi also. Dr. Udai Bhanu Singh, would you please throw some light on?
What I have been observing from recent developments is that Myanmar has suffered a big loss in transition to democracy. Transition to democracy has suffered a big setback. And the situation in Myanmar is tragic because many people have lost their lives. 200 have been killed, including a 7-year-old girl.
No, there are more children. I think there are more than this. There are reports of more children being killed. Please yes. Go ahead.
And when they staged this coup on 1st February, that was the time, and of course, the world was still grappling with the pandemic, COVID pandemic. So now they've declared a 1-year state of emergency, and NLD and the other state councillor, Aung San Suu Kyi, all of them are put under detention. So that is the military now rules through the State Administrative Council, which is headed by Senior General Min Aung Hlaing. Now, protest movements have taken the shape of a civil disobedience movement, and killings of protesters have followed. The recent developments are certainly a big challenge for us, for all policymakers in the neighborhood. And the parliament, which was supposed to meet, did not meet because of all this. Now, what has been our response? What has been India's response? India's MEA at first expressed deep concern and said that rule of law and democratic process must be upheld. Later, the Embassy of India website had stated that it is deeply saddened by loss of lives in Yangon and expressed condolences to families and loved ones of those deceased. And they hope that it would all sides would exercise restraint, resolve issues in a peaceful manner. Now, most important is that the Indian permanent representative to the UN at Geneva, Indramani Pandey, he called on the leadership of Myanmar to work together to resolve the differences in a peaceful and constructive manner. Restoring democratic order should be the priority of all stakeholders in Myanmar. Basically, my contention is that India is trying to harmonize its relationship at the bilateral level with Myanmar, at the regional level, and at the global level. And this it is doing through our neighborhood first policy, the Act East policy, and the Indo-Pacific policy that it has adopted. And in that, to begin with, India's neighborhood first policy, which dovetails into our Act East policy, Myanmar is the linchpin of our India's Act East policy. It's the most important because it was at Naypyidaw that Prime Minister Modi had first announced the move towards Act East policy.
And we made a road, the Border Roads Organization made a very good quality road, which was supposed to
starts from More, and so it is certainly a big move there. And our 4 northeastern states which border Myanmar are crucial for us: Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. And the area covered by our border is more than 1,600 kilometers.
Yeah.
So we need to deal with the insurgency in our northeast. The China factor is there. It's important for securing the Bay of Bengal. So the Indian Ocean factor is also in our calculations. And also many displaced persons had fled Myanmar since 2017, and they fled to mainly to Bangladesh, and the danger that some of them might be radicalized. That is another issue. So this is what I would say, and border management would be an important issue for us. And India's problems could increase once the military begins to focus more on the urban areas of Myanmar cities because of the protest movements that are taking place. So their attention could be diverted from the peripheral areas, and you could see lesser presence, and you could have more presence of the Arakan army and other such groups which are inimical to India's interests. And
thank you, Dr. Udai. For the time being, we'll go across to Mr. Pradip Phanjoubam. Pradip, I cannot but help remember now More, while Myanmar shares about a little over 500 kilometers of a border with Mizoram. It shares a pretty long one with Manipur also, of which a very major point is More. That's the place where one has had the pleasure of having masala dosa in the morning for breakfast and a cow's whey for lunch. You know, and we're leaving no place for the chana bhatura made by the Punjabis there. So we have the Tamil community from there. I mean, that More is a great place where we've, seen all these fusion of all these cultures every day. And now, even some pressure may be put there. I remember, I cannot help, relating this. Our friend Yambim Laba, who writes for the Statesman and some other publications also. Way back, he had entered Myanmar as a cycle salesman because Indian bicycles are in great demand there. And he had, I think, an exciting time and got back. But could you please throw some light on what the inputs and the reactions you're getting from Manipur?
Yeah, let me just give a very broad kind of a picture first, and then maybe get down to what you started with, More, and how this might impact that area. You see this thing happening already in Mizoram, and that's further south, and it's Mizoram is actually bordering the Chin state, but it's start bordering the Chin state because Manipur also borders the Chin state towards the south. The thing is that they're also very close, since it's south, they're also very close to the Rakhine state, where the Arakan army is in operation. So they are actually it's a Burmese state or the Myanmar state is very much present there, unlike in the Chin state, which is sparsely populated, which is why, the influx is not happening this side, but in Mizoram. In Mizoram, they would have already seen some bit of that conflict, some bit of that tension. I mean, a great deal of that, because the Arakan army is very much active at the moment. In fact, they say the Arakan army is the biggest challenge to the Myanmar state at the moment, because they are, the leadership is very young, and also they have also educated, and they have been, I've been seeing some of the videos this morning as well, that they have been managing to unite quite a bit of the other ethnic groups as well. And in fact, now that the mainstream population, the Bamar as they are called, they are also divided. I mean, the civil population is fighting the military, and the civil population is actually joining the insurgent groups, especially in the Arakan. And I was seeing some of the pictures there, and this thing might actually escalate or maybe take the tension into another direction. That that is going to be more of a civil war. It was already a civil war, but then there was a clear line of division between who's fighting who. Now the fighters are going to be the same people, and that is actually very, I think, very dangerous for the place, and might tear the place apart if it continues, if the military is not able to control, or if the military doesn't step down. I don't think they're going to step down. So if that this violence escalates, then I think it's going to be very dangerous for Myanmar. It's going to be civil war. No, all civil wars are not very healthy, in the sense that maybe in the end some bitter thing will some good will come through, but then that's a very traumatic kind of a journey, and I think Myanmar is going through that. And I see the genesis of this, how this came to be so. The military, what compelled it to take over, and we keep talking about what the military say. Others who are opposed to the military are saying that, for instance, military is saying there was election rigging and all that, and so that's an excuse. And I will agree to the sense that it is more of an excuse, that even if there was, which is doubtful, a very election rigging, the insecurity of the military is, they have been for a long time, and then they wanted to perpetuate that. Even after they gave in to democracy, 2008 they had the constitution, and the constitution actually gives itself some place, a big, huge place. 25% of the seats in both houses, both the parliamentary houses, are reserved for the military. Plus, they have civil parties which are close to them, USDP, for instance, and they thought that 25% seats reserved plus some more from the open parties, civil parties, they would always be in power, even if it is democracy, even if they give up that power, or give up that control. And what happened in this last election? But there's been two elections. 2015, there was an election where the NLD actually won landslide. That was again a landslide, but also not as big as this time. People thought, that was immediately after Myanmar democratized, military left power. So there was a bit of a euphoria. And what the military probably calculated was this election is going to be different because the NLD was also facing a lot of problems. The incumbency factor was also there and things like that. But instead of that happening, NLD came out with a bigger mandate. And when that happened, the military would have been very insecure that it may never be again in power. That kind of thought must have come. And also NLD would be in a position to actually amend the constitution to make sure that as in any democracy, to put the military support.
Could you please expand on NLD?
National League for Democracy, that's the party of Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yes.
They were the ones who won this election. I mean, people just before the election were actually calculating that NLD will be probably the single largest party, but they will not be able to form the government of their own. And then they would have to combine with the regional parties. They have, you have the two parliamentary houses, at the center, and then you have 14 regional states, regional governments. They thought that, and also the states and the regions, they call it. The regions are the ones in the plains, and the states are the ones in those ethnic states. So 14 of them, 7 states and 7 regions. And the calculation was that before the elections, that the NLD in the Irrawaddy Delta area, as well as the plain areas, in the regions, the NLD would be coming back with the majority. But in the states, the regional parties will be there, and so the NLD will have to somehow make a compromise with the ethnic parties, and they will join and form a government. That was the calculation. But even that was belied. That the NLD actually came out with a big majority. They didn't even need any other party. So they could have, they would have been in a position to actually amend the constitution to put the military in its place in a democracy where, the civil administration, civil government is at the head and the military is there as a backup power. But that kind of thing was actually what was feared by the military, which is why I think they were compelled to actually say, no, that we have to change the whole thing, change the equation. They took over, now they're in power, and now they must be calculating that, after being in power, normally people, a great section of the people normally gravitate towards whoever is in power. So they must be calculating that they are in power for 1 year. They claim that they'll be only there for only 1 year, and then they will.
Yes.
And then
that is no guarantee. I mean,
there's no guarantee.
Military junta, just declaring that this is only for a year is absolutely no guarantee.
Yeah, that is what everybody is saying. That the calculation is that you are in power for 1 year, and then naturally there will be some people who gravitate towards power. That usually happens. But what others are saying is that the moment you release is going to go back to the same thing. They are not going to. If you have elections, they will never be able to be back in power. So after 1 year, they may find another excuse to extend it. So that's the kind of scenario. Now the question is, how would the rest of the world respond to that kind of a situation? Do you actually intervene? And if you don't intervene, then who do you make truce with? Who do you partner with? Do we do with the military? And of course, as everybody has said, China has been saying that we will partner with anybody who comes to power. If it is NLD, they will. In fact, when Aung San Suu Kyi was the chancellor, state chancellor, she cannot be a prime minister because she is married to a foreigner. And the constitution actually forbids that. So she was a chancellor, was a de facto leader, not the actual de jure leader. So, but while she was a de facto leader, she was actually, China was actually rolling out the red. So it was quite clear that China just needs Myanmar. It doesn't care who is in power. And what's happening is the rest of the world is also responding to that policy. That it's not so much a response to Myanmar as such, but everybody is responding to China. China is doing that, so we'll do it. We'll also have to do it. Otherwise, China may actually tighten its grip on Myanmar even more. Although right now, as everybody is witnessing, the Myanmar people are quite wary of China. Big presence of China dominating everywhere. Yeah.
Got that. Thanks, Pradip, for the time being. General Himalay, first of all, like it has happened in Mizoram, are there any reports of distressed people from Myanmar crossing into Manipur? And if so, if it has happened, it may not have happened so far, but you can't rule out the possibility of that happening in the future. The way the violence with which the Myanmar army is treating, is unleashing on the civilians. Your thoughts?
My understanding is that there are no reports so far of taking refuge in the state of Manipur or Nagaland, but the border being some kind of open border, porous border, I cannot rule out many Myanmaris coming into our area and going back and fluctuating or transiting between the two places, maybe to avoid any kind of a prosecution or for any other reason. But as per the official records, there are no one has come and apprehended or detected, but I cannot rule out many of them taking shelter or taking refuge in our territory and going back up and down. That part cannot be ruled out. I would like to add one more point. I'd like to, through the medium of your this webinar, that what is happening in Myanmar is a little greater game than just about bilateral relation between India and.
Yes, of course.
I take it that it is something like a new great game about to unfold between China and India. So since we are not, I'd like to flag this issue that it is a beginning of a new great game between China and India by other means. Thank you.
No doubt, General Himalay, you have very rightly brought out this, these possibilities, and it suits China. It suits China very well to, first of all, the growth of democracy in Burma was something which China would be very, very allergic to, given its propensities. However, Dr. Udai Bhanu Singh, please, your reactions to whatever has been brought out by General Himalay and Pradip Phanjoubam. And any of your own observations also, please.
Certainly, I feel General Himalay has made an important point, and this kind of tussle had been going on for quite some time, and now I would say the gloves are off, and so this new game, great game, is now perhaps really manifesting itself in the region. On our western frontier, you have the CPEC, and on the eastern side, we have the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, which is steadily coming up. So as part of the greater plan of the Belt and Road Initiative, India is now faced with a situation where the other neighboring countries are not willing to take on China because they have already greatly enmeshed in the economic strength, which the way China has already entrenched itself in the, our efforts at capacity building are also, we may be having an uphill task in that as well. We have, of course, besides the constitutional aspect, we also have been supporting the developmental agenda by supporting the Rakhine State Development Program. And we have already disbursed a lot of aid on that.
Yes, no, and if I may intervene, the Myanmar army has been very, it's always been keen to get weapon systems from us. Now, I think the government will have to take a relook at all this, because in the China-Burma, the China-Myanmar connection must now be kept very, in the foremost in the mind when the government is, formulating any policy on or revising or reviewing any policies on Myanmar.
We have
Thank
given
you
them
very
a
much.
submarine recently. We
Yep.
gave them a submarine recently.
Yes. So anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen, for some very very important and significant inputs that you all have come out with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.